Welcome to Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries. I am Vicki Todd, and together with Dr. Pat, we will learn to push the boundaries of our minds, to think delusionally, and create fertile ground for our big dreams to seed, grow, and manifest. Each episode, we will gain more ability to think delusionally and cultivate beyond boundaries faith that we can accomplish dreams which seem unreachable. Shine, Delusion, Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary, and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. You are born with dreams, gifts, and talents you are meant to use to make this world brighter. Let your delusional dreams shine. It all starts now.
Wow. Hey, everybody. I am Dr. Pat, and I get to take this amazing journey with the most incredible artist, entrepreneur, coach, author, and beyond. Today, this is a really important one because we ask for a lot. We really do. I mean, how many of you have already asked for something today? And I'm not just saying, just ask out loud, but how many like your brain, like you asked for something? Do you know you're even asking? What is the magic formula that some people seem to have where they ask and then they receive? Well, today, Vicki is going to walk us through what it means to be ready to receive. Because think about the universe. It knows when you're just kidding about receiving and when you're dead serious. Vicki, right?
That's the truth. The universe knows all.
But let's talk about this because beliefs are core. And, there are many people in the world, and I'm not one of them, that say, oh, your beliefs are solid, your core values are solid. But I have seen in my own life, and I've seen in many other places where values change and beliefs change. I think Bruce Lipton wrote an entire book on the biology of beliefs, right? But we don't tie them into whether or not what we're asking for, we're actually going to get. So what is it about this that showed up in your life to really get you to thinking, I got to talk about this journey of receiving?
Well, it's amazing because I had already experienced some things in my life just in the recent couple of weeks. And then I happened to watch an Oprah podcast with author Sean Aker, who is one of the happiness researchers. And it just blended in to my experiences. And I was like, oh, this is important. This is the show. But I wanted to start out with the painting that we have to symbolize today's theme. This is a big one. It's a 3 foot by 4 foot. It's called She Appeared on a Journey. And I had painted this the month after I moved to Santa Fe, which was kind of my threshold into my true artist life. And so she kind of symbolizes to me, as you're going along this journey, you meet a new version of yourself, the leveled up version of your true self that you're not quite there yet, but you can see her, so you know that that's in your future. And I had taken it to my aunt's house in Texas, excuse me, and the first thing she said was, oh, I really like it, but she seems to have fear in her eyes. And my first thought was, oh my gosh, what is my Aunt Ruth seeing in me that I'm not seeing in myself, And I thought about it, and I thought, as a memoir artist, my emotions and what's happening with me tends to bubble up in my artwork. And I thought, well, this is part of that journey is fear. I thought she had this contemplation look on her face, but it is fear to think, where am I going? Do I know how to do this? What do I believe I'm capable of? What is my potential? And how is that going to guide me forward? So the thing that really hit me in the last couple of weeks, Sean Aker was talking about that our beliefs don't just set what we're doing right now today, but they predict our future. And, we've talked about that the words we speak, the I am statements we say predict our future. But if you kind of roll that back, your thoughts, your words are set on your thoughts, and your thoughts are set on beliefs. And those can be so ingrained and in there. Some of these beliefs are so deeply set that they can kind of surprise you. And is that, like you said, really where you want to go, really what you want to believe? And how is that restricting you from receiving? And so, I had recently received the 5 wonderful endorsements from you and some other ladies for my book. And they're wonderful endorsements. But when I first started getting them in, I literally, Pat, I was reading the first one on the email, and it was like a brick wall was in front of my face. I could not see the words. I could not see the positive words. And I thought, what in the world is going on? And I talked to my publisher about it, and she said that's totally normal. Authors sometimes tend to think, well, I don't want to anything bad to be said about my work, this new baby that I'm putting out into the world. So then I put up
Mhm.
a wall so I don't see anything. But I realized that, and I actually did this motion when I was talking to her on Zoom. I said, it is so deeply ingrained in me. All the years of my mom telling me that no one wants your artwork, you're going to fail. I'm so embarrassed of you when I quit my professor job, and that was 11 years ago. But, quote unquote, some friends or romantic partners that have also kind of done the same thing. I've been living like this with my boxing gloves up. And if you just look at that motion, it's shrunk back. And so I thought, whoa, that's such a deeply ingrained belief in my system. I have got to get rid of that and, have more of a receiving and open attitude and not this for this book to succeed. And that is so sneaky.
I know it is.
I didn't realize. You think that, okay, I've gotten over that, but that was still so strong.
Yeah. And, I was just talking to somebody this morning, and in the conversation, what I said to her, and she was studying, she's in the process of healing. So she's studying all these people, right? Which we should do. But
Hmm.
I said something to her, and I said, you can study all you want,
Yeah.
but you must start with your mind and your mindset.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm talking more than a few affirmations, mindset.
Yeah.
That, think about those two words. You set your mind to a particular focus on a particular thing. You
Mm.
just described a mindset.
Right.
You just described something that was going on. You caught it. And so once you catch it, then isn't it true, Vicky? Then we can really do something about it.
Right. And I think sometimes you've got to fake it till you make it.
Oh, you got to.
Because,
Oh, come on.
yeah,
Yeah.
because, you
Yeah.
can't just say, okay, well, I see that. That is a really deeply ingrained, years long negative belief pattern. So, okay, I'm just going to change it and it will be done. You can't do that. And so, to me, that's where the I am statements come in. I am a powerful artist. I'm a powerful writer. What I do, my book, the podcast, everything is going to, feed the world. And so eventually it will start getting into your system. But some of these things are so ingrained, especially if
Yeah.
you've had it since childhood. It's hard to get those out. And so it's like, kind of plucking splinters out of your skin, really. And so, but yeah, acknowledging, I think, with a lot of things in life, that's the first step. But then, just working to say, okay, I still kind of feel this, but I need to change it. And it's a process. And so be gentle with yourself along the way, but don't give up on that.
Yeah. Here's a funny story. I was attending Dr. Jean Houston. Her passing was so sad for me, but I
Mhm.
attended her first leadership thing. She had everybody there, Dr. Angela Sari and Donna Eden. I mean, just everybody that was every woman teaching what Jean thought we needed to learn about leadership. And we had to bring in a little clip affirmation. So all these people brought in these clips, like, and this is when I was just starting, like 2004 or something, right? So you have to put me back there. And so everybody brought in these cool clips, and they were ohms and mantras and songs. I bring in a 3-minute clip of Muhammad Ali
Wow.
because that's the way my brain works, you
Yeah.
know, and I played it. Now, some people knew who I played. They knew who he was. Other people didn't. But from the get-go, that man annoyed a lot of people with
Yeah.
one phrase, I am the greatest.
Yeah. Yeah. But He was.
Well, isn't that the chicken and egg story?
Yeah.
Was he the greatest? Or by saying I am the greatest, did his action and behaviors get him to that? Now, I'm not
Oh,
here to answer that question, but that's what we're talking about.
oh
That's
yeah.
faking it till you make it big time.
Absolutely. And that reminds me, I was listening to a podcast last night on Fresh Air, and I can't remember the man's full name, but he's an 80-year-old Broadway actor who's been doing this forever. And, he's won several Tonys. And she was asking him, he's African American. He contracted AIDS in 1991. And she said, did you see yourself at that time becoming at 80, this major Broadway personality and Tony Award winner? And she was thinking that he would say, oh no, I never saw myself like that. And he said, absolutely. And so, he just had it in him that this is my destiny. I may not be there yet. I may have a lot of these roadblocks in front of me, but he said, I just kept moving toward it and I knew that would happen. And I thought, wow, good for you. So we all need that kind of mindset.
And part of this is what you bring to the conversation today. You're mentioning the publisher, you're mentioning the book. And here's the thing, when we ask people for feedback, we're not always going to get what we think we want or deserve. But you see, we're at a choice point. If we
Mhm.
don't get what we want or what we think we should deserve, you just dismiss it. See, this is my thinking. People say, why you throw it away? I throw it away because, whatever that was said right there, that is not the truth of me.
Yeah.
I didn't,
Yeah.
that is not, I'm not going to put that in. I'm not going to include that feedback. That's not what I believe. But yet, the laws of the universe, the God of your understanding, I don't care what you call it. It's always a test. That's what I find.
Yeah. It really
So
is.
there's one test after another. And, it was so funny because it starts to show up in our everyday life. So, where are we with this? Because some people think beliefs have ceilings.
Yeah, and they may not
I
know
don't
that
even
they
know what
have a
that
ceiling.
means.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
they may not know that they have the ceiling. And the reason I put that down, that was one of the comments that Oprah made during the podcast.
yeah,
What is the ceiling of your beliefs? And I thought, oh, well, there's a good question, right? And so basically, what I took from that with the theme of this show, whatever your ceiling is of what your beliefs are, I can only go this far. I only have this much potential and talent. That's going to limit what you receive. That's going to limit what you ask for. And so that really reminded me of that story from the Old Testament about the widow woman that her husband had died. He left her with a bunch of debts. She had two small boys, and so the creditors are saying, "We'll take them as slaves for you to pay off these debts." And so they were in this tragic time. And the prophet Elisha came along and he asked her a very simple question. What do you have in your house? And so the undercurrent, the subtext of this whole story is we have more than what we think. It may seem itty bitty, but you have
yep.
more than what you think. And she said, all I have is this small jar of oil.
Oil.
And he said, perfect. Go out to your friends, neighbors, strangers, and just gather as many jars, vessels, whatever we'll put the oil into. Well, that sounds really outlandish and stupid. If I have this small jar of oil and you're telling me to gather all of these vessels and jars and pots, and he actually said, borrow not a few. Well, I don't remember in the
That's
story if
right.
they tell us how many vessels and pots and jars that she borrowed, but everything that she gathered in, the oil, they kept pouring and pouring and pouring the small amount of her little jar into these larger vessels.
Right.
And miraculously, every jar was filled, and that was enough for them to live off of and pay the debts. And so there's so many levels to this story. But if
Yeah.
she had gathered more, more would have been filled. If she had gathered like, oh, this isn't going to work, I'm only going to gather two, then they would have had two. And
Yeah.
so that reminds me, I remember especially when I first went to college in 1984 from Happy, Texas, the town without a frown. There's a billboard that says so. And it's only 600 and some odd people farming, ranching. And when I got to school, I went to Texas Tech, and at the time it was 26,000 students. I only graduated with 11, so I was thrilled to only be a social security number and not be known and everybody knows what you're doing. And I was so embarrassed of being from Happy, Texas. I would lie and say, "Oh, I'm from Dallas. I'm from Dallas. I'm a city girl." And so, that kind of went on throughout my life. Well, here I am with this book, Shine, Happy, Shine. That's what the happy is. And the whole thing is about growing up in Happy, Texas and how that affected me and my mom and our relationship. So that is such a small jar of oil that I'm now recognizing the value of and using it to hopefully, feed the world in some way. So, we don't know exactly what we have, and it may seem so insignificant, but check it. That may be your little gift in there that you can grow.
But this is that's first of all, that's a great story. Let's break it down for a minute because it is the same Muhammad Ali, I am the greatest idea.
Hmm.
Because think about that woman, right?
The pot lady,
Think
yeah.
about that. Because I can't remember if part of that story was her to create something for him to eat. I'm probably mixing them up. But
That's
here's
a
the
different
point.
widow.
That's a different widow.
Yeah,
These poor widows in the
I
Bible.
know.
But in this particular case, she had to believe.
Yes, she did.
She had to believe
Yeah.
at the get-go
Hmm.
to go gather as many vessels, let's call them that, as she gathered to bring back, and the oil did not stop
Right.
pouring. But
Right.
she had to believe. And you see, that's where the breakdown is for a
Yeah.
lot of us.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're not going to get outside sources telling us. I mean, we don't know what the people that she got the vessels from said to her. Like, seriously, what a joke. I mean, I can only imagine, right? Can you imagine going out in your neighborhood and saying, "Hey, I need a vessel because I got like a half a cup of oil that's going to fill all these vessels." Okay.
In
Chances are
Texas, it would be like, "Will I get my Tupperware back from you?" That's what we would hear.
yeah. But there's something that's hidden in that story.
Hmm.
This is what I think is hidden.
Yeah.
I'm not sure she told everybody.
She
See,
may
it's
not
never
have.
revealed. She may or may not have.
Yeah.
But Catherine Ponder said it better than anybody. Don't dilute your idea by outside opinions.
Yeah. Don't water it down.
Don't water it down. And
Yeah.
yet you and I are public in what we do. And yet we have to learn these things because we don't know. But positive thinkers, let's get to that because I imagine this woman as a widow that is a positive thinker. I just have to imagine that
I
for
hope
myself.
so. That's what I want to,
I
because I
have
mean, her
to.
circumstance was so bad, right?
Bad.
And for
Ugh,
this man to come in, who's basically, it's kind of the reflection of our higher power, God, the universe, whoever your higher power is. She's trusting this prophet. And so it's trusting this higher power to tell you what to do, and you blindly go do it, that childlike faith. And so I hope that she was a positive thinker and gathered a whole bunch of them. But one thing that Sean Aker said in his book, he said that neuroscience has shown that people who are positive thinkers and believe that good is around the corner, something great is going to happen, then it's almost like the universal algorithm that more of that is going to pop into their lives. And so your brain is scanning for these things. Negative thinkers think, that's not going to happen. And so they kind of just skip over it. And so I'm like you, I'm hoping this widow was a positive thinker and gathered a whole bunch. But he referenced this study from the UK, and it was literally count the photos in a newspaper story, which sounds really simple. Well, positive thinkers, they were flipping through there, and since their brain is scanning for positive things, on page 2, they saw a thing that was not a photo, but it was a little like ad that said stop now and collect double. They were supposed to get £5 if they, accomplish this task. And so, oh, page 2, I'll stop. I get £10. Well, the negative thinkers are like, oh, well, this isn't going to really work. Who cares? Just flip, 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 flip through the
scam.
paper. And they skipped over that. And so they finished the task, but they got half of the pay. And so my thing was with combining these two, what if we're not asking? What if we're not looking for enough pots, gathering enough pots? Or what if we're skipping over wonderful things because our brains are so tunnel visioned on, oh, I don't have the potential, my gifts are not good enough, I have nothing to offer. And that's not receiving. We
No.
have to receive.
Yeah. I'm working with Indira, who's hosting a show, and she's a mindset mastery. Okay. But she pulls no punches.
Mm,
So here's the dilemma that we have in our thinking about I'm an optimist. I've always been an optimist. When they asked me the critical question, I actually brought this up on a show and I was corrected. And I never bought into the correction. I just moved on. But I always get asked the assessment question, especially if you're in HR, is the glass half empty or half full? And I remember looking at a high paid consultant, 25K a day. We hired this person to come in. And I just looked at them with my boss, Dr. Roz, doctor, standing there. She hated me. And I said, what a ridiculous question. This is me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Who fills a glass halfway? I
yeah.
don't do that. Do you do that? I
No.
said, when I take a cup of coffee, I take a full cup of coffee. When I take a glass of milk, it's soda. I'm going to pull it. Sometimes it goes over the top.
Yeah.
I don't understand your question. Well, boy, did I get dinged for that.
Oh, wow.
But my brain truly works like that.
Yeah.
Now, when I get asked that question again, I still answer it that way. I'm not saying it's a stupid question today, but then I said that's the most ridiculous question anybody has ever. I really did, and it became
Yeah.
problematic for my company. But the point is this: let's talk about it, because there is a misconception that all optimists are Pollyannas. See, I've been called Pollyanna Patty.
Yeah.
That is not true. You
Yeah.
can be an optimist, and when you draw a line in the sand, you are standing up for yourself. I
Yes.
mean, I think of people like Oprah, which I think Oprah is an optimist. I don't know. I'm no coaching Oprah, but my assessment is she is, but she's not afraid to take on whatever issues are coming up for her.
Hmm.
And you find more and more people. I think you're an optimist. I
Yeah.
mean, people may not see that, but you're not. Susan Dene, who I love, had a phrase: are you a doormat or a bulldozer?
Oh,
Now,
that's a good one. Doormat.
we could do a whole show on that.
Yeah.
And what happens is people think those are the only two choices. That's not what Susan's saying,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
There are ranges in between. But if there's something close to your heart, you will become a
Yes,
bulldozer
you
to
will.
defend it and still can be an optimist. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you will have every right to stick up for yourself, to fight for whatever title of your book, to have a painting behind you that some people won't like.
Yeah.
But you're not going to let people smear your good name.
No. And also, I think that part of that, to me, there's like baby bear porridge with that. There's the tightrope. If somebody's trying to smear my good name, your instinct, my instinct is I want to get in there and fight and, post back and, tell them what's what. But, in my faith, what we're told is let go of that, let God handle your battles. He's the vindicator and protector and defender. And that's hard to do sometimes. But, I think it's a fine line of what inspired divine action should I
Yeah.
take versus just I'm going to just get in there and, punch somebody
Yeah.
out. So that's kind of hard. But that's one thing that Sean Aker had talked about because he has, I think, 7 or 9 beliefs in the book that really affect our lives. And one of them is what we do, our actions matter, and that you do have something to give. And so that really hit me because in this whole process of getting the edits done, which hallelujah, they are done. But the lady who I've never met, she was doing the edits for my book, and I got a message from her through the publisher. She had finished editing my book right before her father died. And she said, I'm so glad that I got it finished. Well, at first I'm thinking she's glad she finished the task so that she can move on and, deal with that, the grief, the funeral, and all that. That's not necessarily what she meant in full. It was that she felt that the universe had used my story about my difficult mother with delusional dementia to prepare her for her father, who was also a negative parent
Mhm.
with dementia or a difficult parent with dementia. And I read that and I just immediately started crying. It's one of those I had to
Wow.
get up before I responded to say, whoa. So, my point with this is whatever little jar of oil you have, whatever gift that you think is, oh, that's not really anything, that's not a big deal, cultivate it. That action of cultivating your gifts, your delusional dreams, that action and believing that that has worth and power, even if you don't see the outcome, that can be a gift to others, whether it's one person, whether it's the whole world. And so that's the point of receiving, is saying, I have something of worth. It may be small, it may not be fully developed, but I'm going to take the action of getting this to grow. And I've read, in the Bible that when you go toward your gifts, they will make room for you. And I never really understood what that meant. I'm understanding what that means. I think that means it gives you the capacity to receive more. And that's
Yeah.
not selfish, it would be selfish if you're saying, oh, I want to sell this book, so I want to make a lot of money and buy a huge house and have a really expensive car. I'm not meaning that type of receiving. I'm meaning I want to grow my gift so it can be more of a positive influence, more of a gift to the world. And the more I'm willing to receive, the bigger my gift will grow, the more it will take off, and the more people, you can help. And so that's the point of receiving today.
Yeah, billionaire mindsets include it all. See, the thing that we have about money is just so ridiculously harmful for us.
Yeah.
Because if you're a person that grew up in poverty, it is okay for you to ask for the big house, you see?
Mhm.
Because if you don't ask for it, every don't that we put out in the universe or every can't, the universe heals that. But what you're saying today is you're creating an energy that is all inclusive for all the goodies that are
Mhm.
available to you. And that is the takeaway from here,
Yeah.
because receiving, you have to be willing to receive it all. The other thing is you have to be able to receive it, maybe in a different form,
Yes.
right? If that woman would have filled all of those jars, if she'd have brought the oil and instead of oil got bread, I wonder if she'd have say, I don't want that, take that back.
Yeah.
But the point is, today you're bringing to light that we have that power. Vicki, how do people find out more about you? Thank you for today.
Oh, thank you. You can go to my book website is shinehappyshine.com. We know it will be published in fall 2026. This fall, I'm getting closer to knowing the exact date. My art website is vickyworldart.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at vickyworldart. So don't clip your wings. Receive more. You can do more with your delusional dreams.
I love it. Thank you for today. Thank you for the reminder. And for all of you out there, there's so much you can listen to. Doesn't matter what your spiritual philosophy is, you're going to find, the tip of positivity out there. And by really taking that in, bringing it in, inviting it in, you may not change overnight, but you will change. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
We'll see y'all next time.
Thank you for listening to Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries. I am Vicki Todd with Dr. Pat. Tune in with us each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more simple, repeatable habits to identify the dreams, gifts, and talents you were born with. Expand your mind and believe your dreams can become a reality. We invite you to tap into the flow of the delusional realm with us to make this world brighter. For more information on living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life and to connect with me, visit vickyworldart.com.